Hello, everyone, and welcome to MindTea, a podcast where we discuss sip-sized, practical tools for meaningful living. I'm your host, Izzy Wan, a mindfulness teacher, tea ceremony host, hypnotherapist, and speaker. Today, we're going to talk about the connection between tea and mindfulness. Many of you have asked me where this name of the podcast has come from, so I thought, why not dedicate an episode to it? The concept is actually quite simple. MindTea came as a combination of my two favorite things, mindfulness and tea. The idea first came to me when I was brainstorming names for an online community I wanted to build, where we do themed communal meditations, mindfulness practices, meet up once in a while in person for well-being events and tea ceremonies. And then working in a tea house, I noticed that people who love tea rituals are often also drawn to mindfulness. Which makes sense because there's this natural overlap, right? Both ask you to slow down, to pay attention, and to savor what's right in front of you. So I thought maybe I'll call it the Mind Tea Collective one day. I haven't started that yet, but I probably still will in the next few years. Let's see how this goes first, eh? And who knows, maybe in a few years you'll be sipping tea with me in a little mindful corner of the world. But over time, when the podcast idea came to me, it seemed like Mind Tea would actually be a better name for the podcast. We always say, my Gen Zers, tea is the word for goss. And so it's like, what's the tea? But for the mind, since we cover a lot of neuroscience and latest well-being insights. But then also drinking tea is so soothing and calming, which is exactly what I wanted the feel of these episodes to be like. Actually, it's quite funny because one of my friends and listeners, shouts out Rio, he messaged me the other day saying, your podcast has got this real nice end of the day dim lights vibe going on. And I thought, yep, that's exactly it. And that's the vibe I'm going for. The kind of podcast that you can unwind to while still learning and listening to the practical tools one sip at a time. I know it's probably not the most catchy podcast name out there, but it felt the most aligned with me. So I just went with it. Now let's talk about tea. Well, tea has always been huge in my culture. If you can't already tell, I'm Asian, and we have tea with almost every meal at home. We would have it a big pot at any dim sum we have, or to drink when you're having a cold, or to cleanse the palate after eating something really strong, lots of MSG, lots of garlic. Tea wasn't fancy, it was just there, always there. So tea was just a beverage back then for me. I saw it as a drink, and I didn't particularly understand the cultural depth of tea at the time, the ritual of drinking it, or what it brought to my life other than its taste alone. That changed though after I completed my mindfulness teacher training in July 2024. I felt incredibly grateful for my course now that I'd learned all the new skills to handle any emotion that came up. And I decided that I wanted to find more ways of connecting with myself. And part of that was connecting with my own culture, which for a long time I actually distanced myself from because I grew up in this international school where I was mostly surrounded by Western culture, particularly American culture, and then later being one of the only Asians in my very northern boarding school in Leeds at the time. So if any of you guys picked up on my very mixed accent or caught that American slang here and there, now you know why. So I think a lot of us who grow up between cultures can relate on this. You sort of adapt or code switch to fit in. But then sometimes you also don't realize how much you miss something until you no longer have it. I spent so much of my life trying to adapt to a more Eurocentric culture and suppressing my Asian side until I was away from home in London for more than 4 years. And only then, realizing how this is an innate part of me, I'll never be able to get rid of it. I can't change my heritage, and I don't want to change my heritage. And therefore, I may as well learn to embrace and accept and love myself the best way that I can. I really love connecting, or I would say reconnecting now, with everything about my culture, learning all there is to it. And I feel so proud of it because it's who I am inherently. And I'm so grateful for my ancestors who fought so hard for survival so that I could be breathing and living in this modern world today. All things of which I wish I could tell my younger self. And so reconnecting with tea actually became this way to reconnect with myself, but also a way to make me feel closer with my family, who I still live away from and only see once a year. Anyways, I started to look up Chinese tea ceremonies, and I visited a Chinese tea house where you brew the tea Gong Fu style yourself. I fell in love because I immediately noticed the relaxation and presence that I experienced. from smelling the leaves before they are brewed, to feeling the warmth of the cup on my fingertips, to watching the movements of the water pour from the brewing vessel into the teacup, to then getting the tasting notes of the tea. It began to occur to me that the entire Gongfu tea ceremony embodied all 9 principles of mindfulness that I had just learned from my qualification. And these 9 principles, created by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, the founder of the mindfulness-based stress reduction program, included non-judging, patience, beginner's mind, trust, non-striving, acceptance, letting go, gratitude, and generosity. In Chinese culture, we prepare and present tea using what we call Gong Fu cha. Gong Fu means hard work, and cha means tea. What these words put together mean is to prepare the tea with care, with skill, and with intention. In a Gongfu tea ceremony, we carefully select the grammage of tea, the water temperature to brew the tea in, and a specific time to brew it for. Before we brew the tea, we may use a tea pick to gently move the leaves into the cup so as not to break them. And then once the water is boiled, we also pour it to one side of the teacup, creating the swirling motion around the tea leaves, moving and enveloping them in heat to let them unravel. And then we wait. We are in no rush to brew the tea. We allow the tea leaves to take as long as they need in order for them to open up. Every steep that we go through is a labor of love. It's well considered. And in order to ensure the most beautiful brew of the tea, to bring out its most beautiful character, we don't rush the process. When brewing a cup of tea, we are forced to slow down and wait for the tea to brew. In stillness, we allow these leaves to unravel and develop their depth of flavor, their complexity. We trust in the process of the brewing. We accept that in order for us to enjoy the tea to its maximum potential, we must let it do its thing. We let go of the expectation that the end result should taste only one certain way, as each first brew, second brew, and third brew changes the character of it. When we let go of the expectation, we simply taste and observe. We are present only with the flavor of the tea, which, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, is a very powerful form of consciousness. Before we drink our tea, we can observe also the tea in front of us, acknowledging that each tea leaf was carefully picked by hard-working farmers on a tea farm, selecting only the finest of leaves for harvest, acknowledging the number of people involved in the whole process of transforming your tea from the farm to your door. Every leaf was produced using all elements of nature, from the soil and the water used to cultivate the tea tree, the air used to oxidize the leaves, and the fire used to dry it. When we bring this to our awareness, can we practice our gratitude for not only what's in front of us, but also what went on behind the scenes? Now, monks knew this connection between tea and meditation long before we did, as they do with our age-old wisdom. There's even a legend that goes, Bodhidharma, the founder of Zen Buddhism, fell asleep during meditation. When he woke up, disappointed with himself, he tore off his eyelids, and where they fell was where the first tea plants grew. Now, whether this story is your cup of tea or not, I know it's very graphic, guys, but we can start to see that tea is a metaphor for staying awake, for staying present, and for staying aware. Buddhists first used tea in meditation during the Tang Dynasty. Monks in particular would drink white or green tea, even till this day, before meditating. Can you guess why? Because not only is white a color of purity, but white teas in particular have the most delicate flavor and are the most minimally processed, so they symbolize this cleansing or purification of the heart, the mind, and the body. Buddhists in Chan or Zen monasteries often incorporated tea into their daily rhythms, where they have certain rituals surrounding how to drink the tea, where they wipe the bowl with care, where they pour with gratitude, and hold the cup with reverence. They also use tea for wakefulness. The caffeine in tea helps the monks to stay awake in meditation, but also the amino acid L-theanine helps you to stay present, enhance focus and concentration, deepening your meditative practice. And finally, Buddhist monks also used tea to connect with one another. Tea was part of hospitality practices in temples, in monasteries, and they hold silent tea ceremonies where monks would sit in stillness all together. Through that silence, a deeper connection emerged. Speaking of using tea to connect, I'm going to say something quite controversial now. But one thing I've observed in the tea world is that there seems to be quite a lot of snobbery around tea. Now, of course, there are ways that make tea taste better. For example, when you control the grammage and temperature correctly, as we said before. But what I've found is that what tastes better, even with tea, is so subjective. I have friends who put 3 grams of tea in a small gaiwan, and then others who put 5 or even 9 grams. I know tea sommeliers who never brew their white tea above 90 degrees. And then I know other third-generation tea masters who will blast brew their delicate white tea at high temperatures to extract every bit of its custody notes from it. The more I've worked in tea shops and been connected with those in the industry, the more I've realized that tea is subjective. Even tasting notes themselves are subjective. And brewing guidelines were made from the opinions of people who thought brewing it in this specific way was how you got, in their opinion, the best taste of tea. And to me, that is the mindfulness of tea. The fact that it's deeply personal. The best tea is the one that helps you arrive in this moment fully. It's about curiosity, not control. It's about connection, not competition. And it's about presence, not judgment. And it's also about staying open to learning and humility. Because the world of tea is huge. I know business owners who visit tea farms every year and source more than 300 different teas from different countries, yet they still believe the more you learn about tea, the less you realize you know. Even brewing varies largely. In Japan, chado is the way of tea, where formality, aestheticism, elegance is prized. Whereas in the high mountains of China, tea is basically their water. Even their pouring is extremely messy. They pull their gaiwans high above the teacups, and community, connection, and conversation over tea is what's prized instead. What does this mean for us then? How can we create our own deeply personal practice with tea, incorporating it as a meditation in our own lives? Henry David Thoreau says, "The soul grows by subtraction, not by addition." When we sit still with a cup of tea, we strip away the noise of our day-to-day lives, the endless items on our to-do lists, the expectations of us from others, and the many plans we have yet to complete. So the next time you have your cup of tea, try and do nothing else but have your tea. Sitting still with a humble teacup in front of you, removing the scrolling, removing the news in front of you, removing the music and screens. Just you and your tea. Listen to the water pouring inside the teacup. Wrap your hands around the warmth of your cup. Watch the steam create these little visuals above your cup. And then take a slow sip and see if you notice anything different about its taste when you're drinking it in this way, with your full attention. Awareness is the most luxurious thing we can offer ourselves, especially in this modern day. I truly believe that. Attention and awareness is our real currency. Alright guys, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for being here, and if any of these resonated with you today, let me know in the comments below and what your favorite tea is. If you took any value from this episode, I'd be so grateful if you could do me a favor and take a moment to subscribe and rate the show, or share this with someone who you love so more people can benefit from mindfulness. Until next time, keep steeping in wisdom, and don't forget to take a moment for yourself today, even if it's just 5 minutes.